In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the receiver hitch on this Nissan Pathfinder. Let's get started. Use a Phillips head screwdriver and remove these two screws that are at the bottom. There's one on each side. Hopefully yours aren't too rusty. These ones are in decent condition. A lot of times these do rust and they get stuck in here. And with these two off, you'll see that the bottom now is not attached anymore. Use a trim tool if needed. Pop that off. Now we have two push clips, one on each side of the bumper, right next to where you just removed that trim piece. And with a trim tool, you'll have to pop these out. Mine are pretty stuck here, and they look like they're in poor condition. So they're probably gonna have to be replaced. Yep, that one's broken, but that's out. Do the same to the other side. There we go. The next thing I want to do is unplug the wiring harness that comes out to the trailer hitch, and because we're obviously replacing this, I'm going to take it. Ours is in pretty rusty condition, so it's very easy to bend, but bending this like that will allow us to get access to the backside so we can unplug the wiring harness. I'm going to leave this plug on this bracket. I just want to unplug the harness. Once we get this out of here, I'll take care of the plug. To unplug this harness, you have a locking clip on the back side here, which I'll show you once this is off. Basically press it, wiggle it, and there it is. The harness came off. So this is the clip that I was aiming for. It sits up here at the top, and once you have this out of the way, we can tuck the harness away. And like I said, at this point you could take this out of here, or you could just wait until the whole receiver's off and then take it off. Next, we have to take off the charcoal canister so we can access two of the side bolts that mount this trailer hitch on. I'm going to use a 13mm socket. Your bolt here might be different. Mine is extremely rusty, so that's what I'm using. And you don't want to take this off, break it free, remove it all the way so we can pull the canister out of the way. Now you can grab the whole charcoal canister and slide it forward. It just has a hook in the back. Now you can let it hang down a little bit. Don't pull on it, and I don't think it's necessary to disconnect any other connections there unless you really want to, but this gives us plenty of space to access the top bolts here. Now to get these bolts off, you're going to need an 18mm socket, in my case also a hammer. Doesn't matter where you start. I'm going to start over here. Make sure your socket is seated. And then I'm going to start by hand, not with an air tool, because I don't want to ruin the threads on the other side. Try to break this free. A lot of times constant pressure by hand works better. And it looks like this one's actually coming off very easily, so that one is safe to use an air tool on. If it was very stuck, you'd want to work it back and forth. And that's why I chose to do it manually. Let's try this one. All right, same deal over here. This one's actually turning very easily, so that's good. Let's finish taking these off. There's one. And two. Since the other two came off easier than I thought, I'm just going to put an 18mm socket with my air impact on these two right here. Let's take these off. Okay, there's one. And two. I'll leave the third one for last, so let's take the other side off first. That way the hitch is held on this side still. Now on the other side, same setup here, two 18mm bolts on the inside, except there's no charcoal canister to take out of the way, and then three underneath. There we go. And let's take out two of the bottom ones. On this side, you'll have to kind of pry the exhaust out of the way. There we go. Now I'm going to set up two pole jacks, and basically I just want to support each side. I'm on the lift, so that's why I'm using pole jacks. Just put a little bit of pressure on it, obviously. Don't raise up the vehicle with this. If you're on the ground, you could just use a jack or jack stands or whatever you have, because now when we take the last two bolts off, it's going to be pretty heavy. You don't want it to just fall uncontrollably. So putting a little bit of pressure on here will ensure that once we take the two bolts out, it'll stay until you're ready to drop it down. All right, now that it's supported, take out the last two bolts. And last one on the other side. Now if you had any support, go ahead and lower it. The whole trailer hitch should want to come down. Just be careful, it is heavy. Yep. Make sure it doesn't get stuck on the bumper cover. At this point, I chose to have a helper so that things can actually go smoothly. Of course, if you're on the ground and you're close to the ground just using a jack, you could potentially just let it drop onto wherever you're working, but it's not the best option. So at this point, we will lift the trailer hitch, remove our support, and now it's going to have to twist down so it can clear the spare tire, and right out. There it is. Now we have to get this plug out of here. You're going to want a pocket screwdriver. There's going to be a little hole here. This is where you're going to want to push this clip through to unlock it. I sprayed mine with a bunch of rust penetrant, which helped. You have to turn it almost 90 degrees so it can unlock. And at this point, you should be able to slide it right out. And there you go. Now let's get this plug right back in here. It has two cutouts, top and bottom. This has two tabs, ears, that they have to line up with, just like this. And then twist it 90 degrees clockwise until it clicks and locks in. It will move around a little bit, that's normal, but it will not untwist. It's locked in. Now have a helper help you put this back in here. You're gonna have to pry the bumper cover away so this can slide in. And then have some support ready so that as soon as it is in, you can have it supported. Now we can raise it up with the pole jacks. And there we go. Now, just so I can raise it up, I'm going to install this bolt on one side, the first one. It really doesn't matter which one you install, but I'm just basically reversing my uninstallation procedure. The trailer hitch comes with all new hardware, and I recommend installing new hardware anytime you take this off and even replace it for any reason, just because the old hardware has most likely had some stress put on it, especially if you've been towing a lot. So you want to replace it, make sure this is nice and safe. So this is threaded in most of the way. I'm not going to tighten it yet, just in case I need to move things around to line up the rest of them. So let's do the same to the other side and then raise it up so we can get better access. Do the same thing on this side, and of course if it doesn't line up, just move it around until it does. Okay, not going to go all the way in. And now let's raise this up and put the other ones in. All right, the other two. If the threads are not clean on these, definitely clean them up. These threads that are inside the frame rails are very important. It is, well, unless you replace things, cut and weld, it's not going to be easy to replace the welded nuts that are in there. This hole right here has a little bit less play, so it's actually hitting up against the side of the threads. I'm going to release the pole jacks a little bit just so I can shift it over. Looks like it doesn't really want to shift. That's where it wants to stay. That's fine. It is threading in. It's smooth. It's just not as easy. So I'm going to continue threading it in all the way, and then we'll do the same to the other side. At this point, you can remove your support. Now let's go back to the passenger side and start these two in. It's a little tricky to get to it with the exhaust in the way, especially if you want to not cross-thread it. All right, so now they're both started. Since I have all of the lower bolts in, I'm just going to snug them up. You do need to, unfortunately, snug these up to get the top ones in position so that the entire trailer hitch doesn't sag down and prevent you from starting in those top ones. Doesn't matter where you start. I'm just going to tighten them all up. And of course, then we'll torque them after they're all installed. Okay, let's move to the other side. Now let's start in these that go on the inside of the frame rail. Snug these up. Okay, let's get the other ones in. And of course the other side. Get these two in. Snug them up. Let's torque all of these to 70 foot-pounds. All right, they're all torqued. Let's get the charcoal canister reattached. Bring it up, slide it in, make sure the bolt hole lines up where it needs to be secured. Nice and snug. There isn't quite enough space for me to plug it in, so I'm going to unclip it, pull it back out just a little bit, line up the connector, make sure it clicks, and then lock it back in. Make sure the connector is actually secured in, which it is. I'm going to pop these clips out of the bumper cover so I can install them on the trim piece side. That way, when it's ready to clip in, it can clip into the bumper. It'll be easier to line up just overall. Use a little pocket screwdriver, pop these out. If they're in poor condition, which these are a little rusty, but they still work. But if they don't work, of course, replace them so that you can properly secure your trim piece. There we go. And to put them on the trim piece, you just slide them on these tabs where they hook onto. Make sure they're seated all the way. And this one over here, there should be 3 in total. Now, take your trim piece, line it up at the top here. All 3 clips should want to lock in when you press them. There we go. And all we need to do is screw it in at the bottom. Reinstall the 2 Phillips head screws. Make them snug. And there you go.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.